Living longer, living healthier, living better than ever before. Welcome to Mountain Pacific's Healthy Living for Life, a weekly series that gives you the information, education, and expert insight you need to become an active participant in today's ever-changing healthcare climate. Here now is today's program host.
It started with a phone call and ended as a case of stolen identity. Millions of Americans are victims of phone-based healthcare scams every year. And as more people gain access to Medicare programs, more criminals are targeting those with insurance to steal their information and identity. Learn how you can avoid becoming a victim of fraud. Welcome to Healthy Living for Life, a show dedicated to helping you do just that. I'm Janet Whitmoyer, your host. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Healthy Living for Life. Our first guest today is Kimmy Everman, the Director of Montana State Health Insurance Assistance Program, commonly known as SHIP.
That's right.
That was a mouthful.
Yeah.
Welcome and thanks for being with us, Kimmy.
Absolutely, love to be here.
Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is Medicare Cards.
Okay.
It's my understanding that all Medicare members are getting new cards. Is that true?
It is, and it's so exciting. We've wanted this for such a long time because our previous incarnation of cards had a person's social security number on it. And so what is going to happen, and it's already started happening as of April 2018, waves of new cards are going out to 58 million beneficiaries, and they have randomly selected number, letter types of claim numbers on their cards now.
Oh, that's interesting. So can you tell us, and so for people that are going to be getting in the cards, what are they going to look like?
Well, they're going to be red, white, and blue, much like the ones they have now. And I think one thing to really keep in mind is this is a huge, huge project, and so they have a year to get those out in waves. So it's going to be going out from April 2018 through April 2019. And if you get anything sort of from the CMS logo with the dove that lots of people on Medicare have seen before, that might very well be your new card.
Okay. So when people get their new cards, what should they do with their old cards?
Well, they want to destroy their old card immediately. And however you do that, put it through the shredder or whatever so that nobody else can get their hands on it. But do not destroy the card until you get your new one. And we can talk about this in a minute, but there's some wiggle room about that new card getting to you.
So pretty much treat it like an old credit card, maybe?
Yes, absolutely.
All
yeah,
right.
Don't keep it or put it in your drawer and hope that it doesn't get stolen or something.
All right, perfect. So if someone has regular Medicare and then also a Medicare Advantage plan, will they still be getting the new Medicare card?
Yes, they will. Everybody that's a Medicare beneficiary is a Medicare beneficiary, no matter how they receive their medical care. And the Medicare Advantage plan is just a different way of receiving it, but they're still Medicare beneficiaries, but they should also remember to not get rid of that Medicare Advantage card. Because that's a different thing, and they're going to need that in addition to their other cards.
So in some instances, people will actually have two quote Medicare cards.
Exactly. Exactly.
So the next question I wanted to ask is, what is the address, or how will people be getting the cards? Where will they be sent to?
Well, what we want people to know is that there's one thing that the Social Security Administration has to do with this huge project, and that is they are using those addresses of the Medicare beneficiaries to get all those cards sent out. So it's really, really imperative that your address with Social Security is correct. And in Montana, we sometimes have problems. It's the mail person knows it's the mailbox down the road, but if you have an actual, even a P.O. box, that's what needs to be correct with Social Security.
And I know that there's problems with scammers using telephone, calling people and saying that they need to talk to them about their new Medicare card. Is there ever an instance where Medicare would do that?
No, Janet, the only time that I can even imagine that happening is if the person or the beneficiary reached out to Medicare first.
Okay.
They are not going to initiate a call to you. They will send you something in the mail. And even, the scammers anymore, even saying, give me your phone number and I'll call back doesn't work, because they have technology now that can make that number you call back whatever they want it to be. My husband went through that with the IRS scam. And so it's very important. If you get a call out of the blue, don't say a word, hang up. There's nobody who's going to call you from Medicare unless they've sent, well, no, not unless. They're going to send you mail.
Okay. So if somebody doesn't receive a card in the mail, who should they contact?
Well, first let's talk about how these cards are going out.
Okay.
Of course, with 58 million beneficiaries, that's a lot of cards.
Yeah.
And so they've been going out in waves, and in Montana, our waves they've begun. And they're not identified to us as to when this part of the alphabet is getting what. So it could be all the way up till April 2019 before you get your new card. I don't expect that, but that's the time frame that the folks at the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services are giving us. And you just keep using your old card until your new one comes. Now, if you decide that you've waited too long, maybe next fall here, call your SHIP counselor.
Okay.
And I bet we can put the number up.
Absolutely.
And also you can call 1-800-MEDICARE.
Okay. So the same thing if somebody does get their card and, excuse me, the information is incorrect, could they also contact you and Medicare as well?
I suggest that they call their SHIP counselor first, their local SHIP counselor, because Medicare, 1-800-MEDICARE can be a frustrating experience at times. Just because they're very menu driven, you have to press lots of numbers, and it can be difficult for some folks. Okay. So getting with their local SHIP counselor, that's the way that I would handle it.
Okay. I have one last question really quickly. We're down to 30 seconds.
Okay.
Are there going to be any changes to the new card? As far as information benefits?
No, only the number.
Okay, perfect. We'll pause here for a short break and we'll talk about Medicare fraud with Kimmy when we return. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We're talking to Kimmy Everman about Medicare fraud. So now, Kimmy, I want to get into a little different vein on here. Okay. Can you tell us if there's a fee associated with having the new Medicare card?
Absolutely none. Okay. No fees. So, and I'm so glad you asked that, Janet, because I know that what we're going to have is people who are running scams about, you have to pay this fee or that fee. Absolutely not.
Okay.
And if you get that in the mail, rip it up, throw it away. If someone calls you, hang up.
Okay, so the premium payment deduction that's made, how will that change at all during this transition?
Nope, nothing. Okay. And that's what's so great, and that's we're just hoping and hoping that it'll go really smoothly, and so far it has been. Okay. But there will be very few changes other than let's keep our beneficiaries safer by taking their Social Security number off of a card they use frequently. Okay,
so that leads me to another problem. We know the Social Security number isn't going to be on there anymore, but there still will be information on there that could be used by scammers for fraudulent purposes, right?
Right. Okay. Well, and I think it's important to remember that people who are scammers, if we foil them one way, they learn another way to conduct their chaos. And so we need to still protect that card, but there will be a number on it. That's your claim number. And even though the other, your Medicare claim number is random, I'm sure there will be scammers out there. So just protect it.
Okay. So going along with that, if somebody should damage their card or accidentally throw it away, what should they do?
Well, a number of things. And actually, to go back to your last question, I also want to add that in addition to keeping it safe, you want to be sure that you're checking your Medicare notices that you get, so that you can see whether anyone has ever used your card for something that you know you didn't have done or a doc you didn't see. The same place that you might look for that information is where you might go if you lose your card or throw it away, and that's the mymedicare.gov website. And that is part of the medicare.gov website, where most beneficiaries who've been around Medicare for a while, they've used that really good website. It's very informational, and the My Medicare is their secure account with their private information that no one else can get to. And once they have that account, they can go there and order a new card if they need to. They can also, Janet, find out the status of, has their new card been sent out?
Oh, perfect. That's really good information.
Yep.
Okay, so I kind of want to go back to the phone calls.
Sure.
I know some people get what we call a cold call from somebody who might be offering goods or services through Medicare. What should people do if they get a call like that?
You know, I would say that you should always ask that person to put it in writing if they want to send you something, and then hang up the phone. You never know, they may not be scams at all, but you just don't know, and you have to protect yourself.
So on that, how would someone know if they were getting a legitimate call, somewhat like maybe their Medicare Advantage plan?
Well, I would say again, call up your local SHIP counselor. We look at that kind of information for beneficiaries every single day. I get, I would say, several emails a week from folks in the field asking me, is this a real company? Is that a real company? We do some research, we find out for that person, and they can go with being informed instead of wondering or guessing.
Okay. So when people are reporting potential Medicare fraud, I think you said they could contact you, but are there other authorities that you would recommend that they contact?
Absolutely, and I think even better than maybe your local SHIP counselor would be our local SMP program, which stands for Senior Medicare Patrol. Same number, we can put it up on the screen, so it's a real easy way to get a hold of them, and they will help you. And they are a totally free of charge program who just want to help keep Medicare fraud down as much as possible.
Okay. I want to switch from the telephone to the TV. A lot of times we'll see those commercials where people are promising to get services and maybe equipment at a cheaper cost. And so are those legitimate, and should people be avoiding calling them, or is that an okay thing to do?
Well, you know what sprang to my mind is dental does that a lot, where people think they're buying dental insurance, and what they're really usually buying, Janet, is a discount card.
Oh,
so you know they're usually on the up and up. It isn't that, but you're not. They imply sometimes that you're getting insured when you're not. You're getting a 10 or 20% discount card. You may have to buy from a certain person or excuse me, a certain organization, and in order to even use that discount card. Again, call either your local SHIP or SMP, and we'll check it out for you.
Okay, and then really quickly, one last one, the mail. A lot of times we get unsolicited mail. With the same type of thing, would you give people the same advice for handling that type of advertising?
Yes, either that or get yourself a good shredder. I have two, and we get so much junk mail, and I just shred it and take it to the recycle bin.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Kimmy.
Absolutely.
You've given us some really great information.
It was great to be here.
Up next, we'll be talking about healthcare fraud with an investigator from the Montana Insurance Commissioner's Office. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're joined now by Ted Bidon from Montana's Department of Insurance. Ted is here to talk about how to prevent healthcare fraud. Thanks, Ted, for being with us.
Happy to be with you.
Good. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk to you about are the statements that Medicare members get. Is it a good idea, in your opinion, for them to read through or vet what is on those statements and why?
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that you get mailing in regards to the medical services, make sure you do read everything thoroughly.
Okay.
When you get specifically the explanation of benefits, or more commonly called an EOB, I'll just call it that.
Yeah.
It's a little easier to remember. Make sure you look at those. On the EOB, it's going to tell what services were done and what the proper charges should be.
Okay.
And you want to use that before you make any bill payments. And we can talk more about that. Yeah.
Okay. So when you're looking at those statements, what specifically should people be cluing in on?
You know, that's a great question. You want to check the date of service. It's usually the first thing that I look at is, does it match with when I went to see my medical provider?
Okay.
Then you want to look at the type of service. What was it? What does it show that the service was done? If it was just an office visit or an x-ray, you want to check those and make sure that that's accurate. And then look at the charges and make sure, you may not agree with the price per se, but make sure that you look at the charges and see if they look like they are appropriate. And your EOB is going to have all of that information on there, and you'll carefully want to match that to any billing statements that you receive from your medical provider.
Okay, that's great to know. So if somebody finds something that they think is incorrect, what should they do?
Well, yeah, that's a great thing to consider. If you have something that, if you receive a medical bill or the EOB and it looks like it's incorrect, the first thing that you should do is contact the medical provider.
Okay.
Sometimes they've just got a billing error and it needs to be corrected. Have your EOB with you, bring that with you, and have your bill with you, and then speak to their billing department and say if the date of service is wrong or the service type is wrong, bring that up to them so they can submit a corrected claim and get that taken care of. I recommend that no one pays their medical bill until the EOB is correct, because that shows what your member responsibility is, your portion.
So if they've gone to the provider and still are not comfortable that it's correct, is there somebody else that they could be talking with?
Yeah, they definitely got some options there.
Okay.
If they're on the regular Medicare plan with like a Med Sup with that, they can contact Medicare and express their concerns there as well. And they can take a look at it and make sure that everything's correct. Ultimately, if you're going with an in-network provider or a provider that has agreed to Medicare services and accept Medicare, whatever that EOB says is what your responsibility is, and they've agreed in a contract to that. So if it says you owe zero, then you owe zero, and hold your ground on that. Don't be afraid to be persistent and work through that process. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. We've heard of a phenomenon called double billing. Can you explain, first of all, what that is, and is it a type of fraud or not?
That's a good question. Double billing is when a medical provider bills for the same service twice. So let's just say, for instance, you went for an office visit and they billed for that office visit twice. Oftentimes, it's just an error, a billing error, where they've made a mistake. Sometimes they'll submit a claim, they don't hear back, so they resubmit the claim a second time, and it gets processed twice. That can happen. And that's why you want to really keep track and make sure you've got your records in order. If the provider is doing it intentionally and billing for that service twice intentionally, then that would be considered a type of fraud and something that needs to be brought forward. And Medicare is really capable of handling that, and we'll be able to address that.
Okay, so keeping records is key so that you can match up.
It really is, yeah.
All right.
Yep.
All right, so then there's another phenomenon called unbundling, and that's different than double billing or double.
It is.
So can you explain to us what unbundling is?
Yes.
And if that's fraud or not?
That's a good question. Billers in offices, they can be very creative
Okay.
on figuring out how they can generate a little more revenue.
Okay.
And sometimes they will unbundle services. And what that simply means is they'll separate out a service.
Okay.
Let's say you go to get a blood work done. Well, they'll separate out the blood draw, the actual blood draw, from the lab work, from the whatever else is involved, and they'll bill all of those individually.
Okay.
And they'll unbundle them so that they can bill a higher amount.
Oh, okay.
Typically, your insurance company, or if it's Medicare, they'll recognize that and they'll bundle them back together.
Oh.
And you'll see that language, though, on your EOB. It'll say services were unbundled, and they'll rebundle them together. Okay. It's not fraud.
Okay.
They can bill that way, but it usually gets caught by the insurance. If your medical provider says that you need to pay for those unbundled services, even though your EOB says that you don't, that would be an issue. You do not need to pay for those services if they've been rebundled by the insurance company.
Okay, perfect. So you've kind of given us some indications of situations that could potentially be fraud. Could you tell us a little bit about insurance fraud in the state of Montana? Is it a real concern?
It is. It does happen. There hasn't been anything real big or anything that's really trending right now in Montana, but nationally there have been some issues that have come up. For instance, our neighbor in Idaho. I know that you guys have talked a little bit about SHIP, the state health insurance program, and the assistance that they provide. Well, they have the same service in Idaho. And what happened in Idaho was that people were calling and asking for information saying they were with SHIP. And it's also happened where they've called and asked for information saying they were with the Department of Insurance, asking for medical information, asking for personal information that they shouldn't be giving out. Either SHIP or Department of Insurance, we would never do an outbound call where we would request your personal information. Okay. So if that were to happen, we'd want you to report that to us. Okay. Definitely.
Perfect. I think we're going to have to leave it on that, but that's a really good tip to leave it on, to contact SHIP or your office.
Yes.
So I want to thank you so much, Ted, for being with us and giving us some really great information.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'd also like to thank Kimmy as well. I hope you at home enjoy our show. See you next week. In the meantime, stay fit, stay well, and stay healthy for life with Healthy Living for Life.
Healthy Living for Life is brought to you by Mountain Pacific Quality Health. We'd love to hear from you. If you have suggestions for future programs, visit our website at mpqhf.org or call us at 406-443-4020. You can also catch us on YouTube by visiting our website and clicking on the YouTube icon. Special thanks to Fire Tower Coffee House and Roasters. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions.